I'm Charles Bartlett from the University of Delaware. You have a specimen that looks like this, and so we'll take this one now and run it through the key. Once again, we begin by looking at the hind tibiae. Now, the apex of the leg happens to be broken off, but it is not important for us. Here's the apex of the hind tibiae, here's the first tarsomere, and here's the second. So first thing we need to observe is the apex of the hind tibiae does not have the large apical movable spur. So clearly we can move on and say this is not a delphacid. The second couplet reads second hind tarsomere with 2 apical spines versus second hind tarsomere with a row of apical spines. So again, tibiae, first tarsomere, second tarsomere, and right in there, there is a complete row of spines. So this time we go in the other direction and we move on to couplet 8. Couplet 8, large species, 10 millimeters or more, forewing usually colored, opaque, and slightly thickened, held slightly tectiform, venation usually reticulate. So this couplet at some levels is a little troublesome. Because we need to estimate how big this is, and the question is this, say, 10 millimeters or larger? And the answer is no, it's closer to maybe 7. Forewing usually colored, opaque, and slightly thickened, but if you look at the forewing here, you'll see that the forewing is membranous and clear. It is not opaque and thickened. Held slightly tectiform, that is true. Venation reticulate, and in this case the venation is not reticulate, the venation is normal. Anal area of the crosswing, anal area of the hind wing with cross veins. We will look at that in a couple of minutes, but how do you see the anal area of the hind wing? Well, that's always a little bit problematic. In spite of this being an important feature, how you would normally do that is turn it upside down. And if you do that, you can see right in here the apex of the hind wing. And if you do that, you'll discover that the apex in the hind wing does not have cross veins. So all of the features that we see essentially tell us to go on to couplet number 9. So couplet number 9 asked about the terminal segments of the beak. And so we need to be able to arrange this so we can see the terminal segments of the beak. And the legs are a little bit in the way. But what you would do is, again, have it upside down like this. Here is our beak, and what you want to do is find the terminal segment, which is right down in there. And is it much shorter than the segment that precedes it, or is it not? And in this case, if we looked at that fairly carefully, we would discover that the last segment of the beak and the second to last are about the same length, and they are not short at all. So the couplet goes on asking whether there are pustules along the claval vein of the wing. If we would turn this once again right side up. And look along here, the claval vein or the anal vein, we would see little sedal bases, which happens to be important, but we would not see pustules. Fronds narrowed with median carinae absent or obscured. We're beginning to sense a pattern here, but let's turn it upside down and look at the fronds. Couplet asks whether the fronds is narrowed. So we're looking, and here, is that fronds narrowed? No, that fronds is wide. It also asks whether the median carinae of the fronds, which we will see right in here, if it is absent and is not absent, it is clearly present. So none of those features are true, so this is not a turbid. We're going to move on to couplet 10. Couplet 10 asked if the front wings are distinctly overlapping at apex, at the apex. Turn it over and get it right side up again. And look, are the front wings overlapping? And clearly they are not. So in comparison, let's look ever so briefly at this one, which is not something you have in front of you. And if you follow the commissural margin here, you'll find that the front wing right up in here is broadly overlapping. So this is an achilid with the wings overlapping at apex. It's also flattened, and you'll find other features of Achillidae. But what we have, this guy in front of us is not an achilid. So we'll move on and to couplet 11. Couplet 11 asks, head prolonged in front. So is this head prolonged? And at least our gut answer is no. It is not prolonged. And the couplet goes on to read, or. You've got to worry about these things that say or the fronds with 2 to 3 median carinae, 4 to 5 total. So to do this, to see this feature, we have to look again at the fronds. And we would count our carinae of the fronds. And how I would count them is that you have a pair of lateral carinae, you have a median carina, but you have nothing else. I would call that 3 carinae. So this does not have that feature, and it also does not have an elongated front. So none of those features so far hold. So we'll move on to couplet 12. The second side of couplet 11 reads, head not prolonged in front, fronds with a single median carina, rarely none, tegulae present. We might as well look at the tegulae so you know what that feature is. So the tegulae are a structure at the base of the wing. They're actually part of the wing. Tegulae are characteristically present in fulguroids, and obviously right there is the wing. Right here is the tegulae. It's big and obvious, so it is clearly present. You'll notice that the end of the second part of couplet 11 ask median ocellus often present. And we haven't seen a median ocellus yet. And, well, I haven't pointed it out yet, so it's time that we did. And this is important for recognizing this family, because we've gone and looked at a lot of things, but there's a bit of a shortcut. So right here is the Clypeus, right here is the frond of the fronds, and right in there is a median ocellus. There are exactly two families that regularly have a median ocellus. One is this one, and the other is the family Canaridae. So canarids and Cixiides are the only families that regularly have a median ocellus. If you see it, it's going to be one of those two. So we move on to couplet 12. Our last couplet is going to be either a canarid or a Cixiide. So this couplet begins by reading abdominal turga 6 through 8, chevron shaped. That is a bit of an unfriendly couplet because, where are the abdominal turga? They're underneath these wings, and we have no easy way of seeing that feature. And then it caveats, at least in female, sometimes sunk below the rest of turga. Let's go on to the rest of the couplet just for a moment. Females with reduced ovipositor, 3 to 4 millimeters. We guessed in the beginning that this might be about 7 millimeters. And if we turn this guy upside down and take a look, this one just happens to be a female, and it happens to have an ovipositor right here. That ovipositor actually is partially buried in this wax. That is not a reduced ovipositor. That is a distinct ovipositor. Forewings, if we continue on, forewings, veins usually without pustules or setae, but we've already observed that this particular specimen has along the veins of the wings little spots that indicate cetal bases. So every couplet, everything that we've looked at so far says that this happens to be the family Cixiidae. Abdominal turga normal, females with distinct elongate ovipositor. And by the way, that truncate abdomen we saw in the ovipositor is pretty characteristic of some groups of Cixiides. Larger than 4 millimeters, veins, pustula, and so on. So that makes this a Cixiide. An important group to know, one of the most diverse groups of plant hoppers. Most of the time they are easy to recognize if you know what you're looking for, but they can be tricky to key out, as you can see, because you have a lot of things to look for.